The old railway station stood abandoned at the edge of Coolsville, its rusted tracks stretching into the foggy darkness like skeletal fingers reaching for the moon. The smell of oil and decay hung heavy in the air, mixing with the peculiar scent of burnt rubber and something metallic that made your nose wrinkle. Inside the mystery machine, Fred gripped the steering wheel as headlights cut through the mist, illuminating a weathered sign that read, "Goldridge Station, closed since 1985. Like, why are we here again? Shaggy asked from the back seat, clutching a family-sized bag of chips he'd bought with his last $20. I could be home saving money by eating Mom's leftovers instead of spending all my allowance on snacks. Velma pushed her glasses up, holding a newspaper clipping. Because, Shaggy, there's a mystery worth investigating. According to this article, the abandoned Goldridge Express has been seen running at midnight for the past 3 weeks. Witnesses claim it is a ghost train filled with gold bars from an old heist that was never solved. Gold bars? Daphne's eyes lit up. That could be worth millions. But wait. If it's been appearing for 3 weeks, why hasn't anyone tried to investigate or claim it? Because everyone who has tried has run away screaming about a phantom conductor who threatens to make them pay ... With their lives, Fred said grimly, parking the van. But here's what's interesting. The local bank reported unusual activity in some old investment accounts linked to the railway company. Someone's been moving money around. Roast train? Roll bars? Scooby whimpered, his ears flattening against his head. Don't worry, Scoob, Shaggy said, though his own voice trembled. Like, maybe the ghost accepts snack coupons instead of, souls? The sound of a distant train whistle pierced the night low, mournful, impossible. The station had been closed for 40 years. There were no working trains. Yet, there it was again, closer this time. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Jinkies, Velma exclaimed. According to my calculations, that sound is coming from the old tunnel system. But that is impossible unless someone has invested significant capital into restoring the track. Infrastructure without permits or public knowledge. This isn't just a ghost story. This is a financial crime in progress. A glowing light appeared in the tunnel's mouth, growing brighter, accompanied by the rhythmic chug-chug of an approaching locomotive. But this was no ordinary train. It shimmered with an ethereal green glow, its windows dark, except for one, the conductor's cabin, where a shadowy figure stood, pointing directly at them. Gang, Fred said, his voice steady despite the impossibility before him. I think we just found the most expensive mystery we've ever solved. And something tells me the real treasure isn't gold. It is understanding how someone has been profiting from this elaborate scheme. The phantom train let out another ear-splitting whistle as it barreled toward the station, showing no signs of stopping ... The mystery machine's doors creaked open, and the gang stepped onto the cracked concrete platform of Goldridge Station. The autumn wind carried whispers through broken windows, and somewhere in the darkness, a metal sign swung back and forth with an eerie clang-clang that echoed through the empty halls. Okay, gang, Fred announced, pulling out his flashlight and a small notebook where he'd sketched a preliminary investigation plan. We need to approach this systematically. Velma, you and Daphne check the old ticket office and station records. Shaggy, Scooby, and I will investigate the platform and tracks. Like, why do we always get the outside investigation? Shaggy complained, pulling his green shirt tighter against the cold. Can't we investigate somewhere warm, like a kitchen or a bakery? Rakery, Scooby agreed enthusiastically, his tail wagging at the thought. Daphne smiled and put a reassuring hand on Shaggy's shoulder. Tell you what, after we solve this mystery, I'll treat everyone to dinner. But only if we stick to my budget this time. Last week, you two ate $40 worth of sandwiches, and I'm trying to save up for that journalism course. $40? Shaggy gasped. Like, That's not even that many sandwiches when you really think about it. Velma adjusted her orange turtleneck and headed toward the ticket office, her flashlight beam cutting through decades of dust. Actually, Shaggy, $40 could have bought you 80 ramen packets or 20 loaves of bread and peanut butter. It is all about opportunity cost, what you give up when you choose to spend money one way instead of another. Opportunity cost sounds like something that costs opportunities, Shaggy muttered, but he followed Fred toward the platform anyway, with Scooby trotting nervously beside him. The platform extended into darkness, its surface littered with broken benches and faded advertisements from the 1980s. Fred knelt down near the track, examining the rails with his flashlight. Guys, look at this. These tracks are old, but someone's been maintaining them. See these oil marks? Fresh, within the last few days. Rono, Scooby yelped, backing away from the tracks. Like, fresh oil means fresh trains, and fresh trains means fresh ghosts. Shaggy's teeth chattered. Maybe we should go help the girls with the boring paper investigation instead. But before Fred could respond, a sound emerged from the tunnel, not the train whistle this time, but voices. Angry voices, arguing about money. Told you the investment would pay off. 3 more runs, and we'll have cleared $2 million. But what if someone traces the accounts? What if? The voices stopped abruptly, as if realizing they weren't alone. Fred signaled for silence, and the 3 of them crept closer to the tunnel entrance. The smell of diesel fuel and something chemical paint, maybe, wafted from the darkness. But before they could investigate further, a different sound made them freeze. The unmistakable rumble of an approaching train. From deep within the tunnel, the green glow appeared again, growing larger, brighter. The ground shook. The phantom train was coming, and it was coming fast. Zoinks! Shaggy grabbed Scooby. Like, forget the investigation. I choose a life. The 2 of them sprinted back toward the station building, just as the ghost train burst from the tunnel in an explosion of green light and sound. It screeched to a halt at the platform, its wheels sparking against the rails. The conductor's cabin door flew open with a bang, and a figure emerged tall, wrapped in tattered Victorian-era clothing, with a face hidden behind a glowing skull mask. Leave this place. The phantom conductor roared, his voice echoing with an unnatural reverb. The gold is cursed. All who seek it shall pay the ultimate price. Fred stood his ground, though his heart pounded. We're not here for gold. We're here to solve a mystery. The phantom conductor laughed a chilling sound like wind through a graveyard. Mysteries cost more than you can afford, boy. He pointed a skeletal finger at them. Your investigation ends now, or you'll make the worst investment of your lives. With that, the phantom retreated into his cabin, and the train began to move again, accelerating impossibly fast before vanishing into the fog beyond the station, leaving only the smell of ozone and the echo of that terrible laughter. Shaggy and Scooby emerged from behind a trash can, trembling. Like, did he just make a financial threat? Shaggy asked. What kind of ghost talks about investments? Fred's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Exactly the kind of ghost we need to unmask. Come on, let's see what Velma and Daphne found. Inside the old ticket office, surrounded by dusty ledgers and filing cabinets, Velma and Daphne had made a discovery. Velma held up a brittle newspaper from 1985, her hand shaking with excitement. Fred, look at this. The Goldridge Express Company went bankrupt in 1985 after a gold shipment disappeared during transport. The company's owner, Cornelius Goldridge, claimed it was stolen, but investigators suspected insurance fraud. He was never convicted due to lack of evidence, but the railway shut down, and Goldridge died broke and bitter in 1990. Daphne spread out several documents on a dusty desk. But here's where it gets interesting. These are investment portfolios and bank statements we found hidden in a false drawer. Someone's been using old Goldridge Railway Company accounts to funnel money, lots of it. Look at these transactions. 50,000 here, 80,000 there, all coded as operational expenses for historical restoration. But there's no historical restoration happening here, Fred said, looking around at the decrepit building. This place is falling apart. Exactly, Velma confirmed. Someone's using the ghost train legend as cover for a money laundering operation. They create invoices for fake restoration work, move money through these old accounts, and pocket the difference. It's actually quite clever. Who would think to investigate a company that's been dead for 40 years? Money laundering? Scooby cocked his head. Money laundering is when someone takes money earned illegally from crime and makes it look like it came from a legitimate business. Velma explained patiently. It's like if you stole cookies, but then pretended you bought them at a store so no one would know you were a cookie thief. That's rad. Scooby nodded seriously. Shaggy scratched his head. But why go through all this trouble with a fake ghost train? Seems like a lot of work when you could just, not commit crimes? Because Shaggy, crime often seems like a shortcut to wealth, Velma said. But shortcuts usually cost more in the end in risk, in stress, and eventually in consequences. Legitimate investing and saving money might seem boring and slow, but it's the only sustainable path to actual financial security. A loud crash from outside interrupted the conversation. Through the window, they saw the ghost train returning, circling the station like a predator. Gang, Fred said with determination. I think it's time we follow that train and see where it really goes. This mystery just became an economics lesson in what not to do with money. The phantom conductor's laughter echoed across the platform once more, and somewhere in the distance, the sound of heavy machinery rumbled to life. Dawn was breaking over Coolsville, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, but the gang had no time to appreciate it. They'd spent the night researching in the mystery machine, parked discreetly near the tree line where they could observe the station without being seen. Fred had set up a small command center inside the van, maps of the railway system spread across the floor, financial documents pinned to a makeshift board, and a laptop displaying transaction records Velma had photographed. Okay, here's what we know, Fred said, pointing to a map with red circles marking several locations. The ghost train appears at midnight, runs for approximately 15 minutes, and then disappears. According to these old railway maps, there are 3 possible destinations: the old warehouse district, the abandoned Goldridge Manor, or the quarry where they used to mine limestone. Velma was hunched over the laptop, her fingers flying across the keyboard. And here's what the financial records tell us. Over the past 6 months, approximately $1.2 million has moved through these accounts. The interesting part? The money isn't being withdrawn, it's being vested. Invested? Daphne leaned in, intrigued. In what? That's the mystery, Velma admitted. The transactions are coded, but I recognize some patterns. Real estate purchases, equipment leases, even payments to what look like legitimate construction companies. Whoever's running this operation isn't just stealing money, they're building something. Shaggy yawned, holding an empty chip bag sadly. I wish I was building something. Like a sandwich. Anyone got $3 I could borrow? I spent all my money yesterday, and now I'm broke until allowance day. Shaggy, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Velma turned to face him. You spent $20 on snacks yesterday, and now you have nothing. If you'd saved even half of that, you have $10 for today. That's called budgeting, planning your spending, so you don't run out of money before you run out of month. But I was hungry yesterday, Shaggy protested. How was I supposed to know I'd be hungry today too? Scooby nodded in solemn agreement. Rungry Reverie Ray. Daphne pulled out her wallet and handed Shaggy $3. Here, but this is a loan, not a gift. You'll pay me back $3.50 next week. 50 cents extra. Shaggy's eyes widened. That's a 50% markup. It's called interest, Daphne explained with a smile. When you borrow money, you usually have to pay it back with a little extra to compensate the lender for the risk and the time they without their money. Banks do it, credit cards do it. It's how the lending system works. Man, being poor is expensive, Shaggy muttered, but he pocketed the money gratefully. Fred cleared his throat. As educational as this is, we need to focus. Velma, can you trace where these investments are going? I can try, but it'll take time. These records are deliberately obscured. Velma paused, staring at the screen. Wait, look at this. 3 months ago, there's a massive purchase. $200,000 labeled as entertainment equipment and special effects. That's oddly specific for a money laundering operation. Entertainment equipment? Fred's brow furrowed. For what? Before anyone could answer, a car pulled into the station parking lot, a shiny black sedan that looked expensive and out of place in the decrepit setting. A man in a business suit emerged, carrying a briefcase. He looked around nervously before approaching the station building. Quick, everyone down, Fred whispered urgently. They watched as the man entered the station. He was middle-aged, well-dressed, with the nervous energy of someone about to make a deal they weren't entirely comfortable with. Should we follow him? Daphne asked. Let's split up, Fred decided. Daphne, you and I will tail that businessman and see what he's up to. Velma, keep working on those financial records. Shaggy, Scooby. Let me guess, Shaggy interrupted. We're on snack patrol? Actually, I need you two to investigate the warehouse district. Take these. Fred handed them a camera and a small radio. Document anything suspicious and call if you find the train. Can you handle that? Scooby and Shaggy exchanged glances, communicating in that wordless way only best friends can. Okay, Scooby agreed reluctantly. Fine, but if we get chased by the ghost train again, I'm sending you guys the therapy bill, Shaggy said. 10 minutes later, Shaggy and Scooby found themselves walking through the warehouse district, an area of Coolsville that had seen better days, specifically better days about 40 years ago. Abandoned buildings loomed on either side of cracked streets, their broken windows like empty eyes watching the two friends as they crept along. Like Scoob, this place gives me the creeps, Shaggy whispered, even though there was no one around to hear. Why couldn't a mystery be at a pizza factory or a donut shop? Rhea, Ronut Rop. Scooby's tail wagged hopefully. They turned a corner and stopped dead. There, behind a rusted chain-link fence, was a warehouse that clearly wasn't abandoned. New locks secured the doors. Fresh tire tracks marked the dirt driveway. And most tellingly, they could hear the hum of generators and the rhythmic clang-clang of machinery. Zoinks! Shaggy grabbed Scooby's collar. I think we found something. They crept closer, peering through a gap in the fence. Inside the warehouse's open loading bay, they could see it, the ghost train, but without its supernatural glow. It was just a regular old locomotive, painted with phosphorescent paint and equipped with what looked like theatrical lighting equipment. Ritz rake, Scooby gasped. Of course it's fake. Shaggy pulled out the camera and started snapping pictures. But why would someone go through all this trouble to make a fake ghost train? This must have cost a fortune. As if in answer to his question, voices echoed from inside the warehouse. Perfect for the grand opening. The investors are going to love the haunted railway experience. But what about the kids who've been snooping around? What if they expose us before we launch? Don't worry. The Phantom Conductor routine scares everyone away. We just need 2 more weeks to finalize the permits and open the theme park attraction. Then all this investment will pay off. We're talking millions in ticket sales alone. Shaggy and Scooby looked at each other in amazement. Did you hear that, Scoob? This isn't a robbery or money laundering. It's a business venture. Someone's building a theme park attraction and using the ghost train legend as publicity. Rut scare reverie, Ron? Scooby asked, confused. Good question, Shaggy mused. If they have legitimate business plans, Why threaten people? Why not just tell everyone what they're doing? Before they could ponder further, a hand landed on Shaggy's shoulder. Zoinks! He jumped 3 feet in the air, and the camera flew from his hands. But it wasn't the phantom conductor. It was the businessman they'd seen earlier, and he looked terrified. Please, he begged. You have to help me. I invested my entire retirement fund, $200,000, into this ghost train theme park project. But now I think it's a scam. They promised me returns of 30% within 6 months, but I've done the math, and it doesn't add up. I think I've been tricked. Velma's voice crackled over the radio. Shaggy, Scooby, do you copy? I've traced the investments. This whole operation is a Ponzi scheme. They're using new investors' money to pay fake returns to old investors. The theme park doesn't exist. It's all a fraud. The warehouse doors suddenly burst open, and the phantom conductor appeared. But this time, without his glowing effects, just a man in a costume, flanked by 2 associates. Sounds like you've learned too much, the fake phantom said coldly. That's the problem with curious investors. They start asking questions we can't answer. Shaggy grabbed Scooby and the businessman. Like, time to go. Run. They sprinted down the street with the criminals in pursuit, Shaggy clutching the radio and shouting, Fred, Daphne, we need backup. And maybe also a lesson on how to spot investment fraud, because I think we just found a really expensive mystery. Behind them, the sound of pursuit grew closer, and Shaggy couldn't help but think that maybe Velma was right. Some shortcuts to wealth really were too good to be true. The chase through the warehouse district was unlike anything Shaggy and Scooby had experienced before. Usually, they were running from monsters, or at least people dressed as monsters. But this time, they were running from well-dressed criminals in business casual attire, which was somehow even more unsettling. Like, Scoob, take the next left. Shaggy panted, the terrified businessman stumbling along beside them. They ducked into an alley just as Fred and Daphne's voices crackled over the radio. Shaggy, we're 5 minutes away. Hide somewhere safe. Hide somewhere safe? Shaggy gasped. Like, that's the first thing we do in every mystery. We're professionals at hiding. They dove behind a dumpster, pressing themselves against the grimy wall. The businessman who'd introduced himself as Harold Peterson, between gasps for air, was nearly in tears. I can't believe I was so stupid, Harold moaned. My wife warned me. She said 30% returns in 6 months was impossible, but I wanted to believe. I wanted to retire early, travel the world, leave something for our grandchildren, ... Velma's voice came through the radio, more gentle this time. Mr. Peterson, you're not stupid. You're human. Scam artists are experts at exploiting our hopes and dreams. They know exactly what to say to make impossible investments sound reasonable. The footsteps of their pursuers echoed down the alley, then passed by. The criminals were searching, but they'd chosen a different direction. Scooby peeked out from behind the dumpster. Rare on. For now, Shaggy said. Like, Mr. Peterson, how did you even find out about this investment? Harold pulled out his phone with shaking hands, showing them a slick website. Goldridge Entertainment Ventures Historic Theme Park Development. Guaranteed returns. Limited investor opportunities. The site featured professional photos, testimonials from satisfied investors, and detailed business projections. It looked so legitimate, Harold explained. They had an office, business cards, even references from other investors who showed me their account statements with huge returns. How was I supposed to know it was all fake? Velma's voice came through again. Because those returns other investors showed you were probably just numbers on paper, never actually withdrawn as cash. That's how a Ponzi scheme works. It looks profitable on paper, but it's really just recycling money from new investors to old investors. Eventually, there's not enough new money coming in, and the whole thing collapses. Like a pyramid scheme? Shaggy asked. Similar concept, Velma confirmed. Both are unsustainable frauds. The people at the top might make money, but most investors lose everything. Harold buried his face in his hands. $200,000. That was 30 years of careful saving. Gone. Daphne's voice cut in, unusually emotional. Mr. Peterson, my aunt lost money to a similar scheme 5 years ago. It's not your fault. These criminals are sophisticated, and they prey on people's trust. But you did the right thing by investigating when something felt wrong. The question is, Fred's voice came through, how many other investors are there? If this is a Ponzi scheme, there could be dozens of victims. Actually, Velma said, and they could hear her typing furiously. Based on the financial records, I'd estimate at least 40 investors, with total investments around $8 million. The scheme's been running for almost a year. $8 million? Shaggy's jaw dropped. Like, that's a lot of Scooby snacks. $8 million ruby racks. Scooby's eyes went wide. It's also a lot of ruined retirements, college funds, and life savings, Velma said soberly. Gang, this is bigger than we thought. We're not just solving a mystery. We're potentially saving dozens of people from financial ruin. Fred's voice became determined. Then we need to act fast. If the criminals realize we're onto them, they might try to disappear with whatever money is left. Shaggy, Scooby, can you get Mr. Peterson back to the mystery machine safely? Like, sure, but what are you and Daphne going to do? We followed that businessman to a meeting at the old Goldridge Manor, Fred explained. There are at least 10 other investors here, and they're about to be pressured into putting in even more money. The organizers are claiming there's a special expansion opportunity that requires immediate additional investment. That's a classic pressure tactic, Velma interjected, creating false urgency so people don't have time to think critically or consult with advisors. Fred, be careful. If they realize you're not real investors, this could get dangerous. Don't worry, Daphne said. We're pretending to be a young married couple interested in investing my inheritance. They've already given us the full pitch. And let me guess, Velma said dryly, it sounds too good to be true. Way too good, Fred confirmed. They're promising 50% returns now, claiming the theme park is nearly complete, and they just need final capital for the grand opening. They were showing edited photos of construction that I am pretty sure are actually from a different theme park. Harold Peterson, listening to all this from behind the dumpster, suddenly stood up with renewed determination. I'm not hiding anymore. These people stole my life savings, and they're about to steal from more innocent victims. I'm going to that meeting, and I'm going to confront them. Like, that's really brave, Mr. Peterson, Shaggy said. But also maybe really dangerous? These people chased us through a warehouse district. Shaggy's right, Velma's voice cautioned. Mr. Peterson, confronting them directly could spook them into running before we have evidence to involve the authorities. We need a better plan. Then let's make one, Harold said firmly. I might have lost my money, but I can help save others from the same fate. What do you need me to do? There was a pause, and then Fred's voice came through with a plan. Everyone meet back at the mystery machine. Velma, pull together all the evidence you have. Mr. Peterson, we're going to need you to help us understand exactly how they convinced you to invest. And gang, I think it's time we set a trap. But this time, we're not just catching a fake ghost. We're catching real financial predators. As they made their way back through the streets, carefully avoiding the criminals who were still searching for them, Shaggy couldn't help but reflect on the day's lessons. Like, Scoop, I'm starting to think Velma's right about the whole saving money thing. If someone offers you 30% returns in 6 months, it's probably too good to be true, right? Rhea, Scooby agreed. Rave Roni, rend. Don't spend? Shaggy laughed. Like, let's not get crazy, buddy. Maybe just ... spend carefully after we've saved some first? They arrived back at the mystery machine to find Velma surrounded by printouts, photographs, and financial documents. Her eyes were bright with the thrill of solving a complex puzzle. "Gang," she announced. "I know exactly how they've been running this scheme, and I know how we can catch them. But we're gonna need everyone's help, including Mr. Peterson's. Are you ready to learn some practical economics and catch some criminals at the same time?" "Hey," Fred grinned. "That's what we do best." "Well, that and eating enormous sandwiches," Shaggy protested. "Those sandwiches are an investment in our energy levels." "That's actually not how investments work," Velma began, but she was smiling. Outside, the sun was setting over Coolsville, and somewhere in the distance, the fake ghost train whistle sounded one more time. But now they knew it wasn't the Phantom, just a very expensive theatrical prop in a very illegal scheme. The trap was being set. The mystery was nearly solved. And before the night was over, some financial criminals were going to learn an expensive lesson of their own. The mystery machine was parked in the shadows near Goldridge Manor, a once magnificent Victorian mansion that had fallen into elegant decay. Inside the van, the gang huddled around Velma's laptop while she sketched out their plan on a whiteboard she'd borrowed from the local library. "Okay, here's how a Ponzi scheme works," Velma explained, drawing a pyramid with money flowing upward. "The organizers promise high returns, but instead of actually investing the money in legitimate businesses, they simply use money from new investors to pay returns to old investors. It creates the illusion of profit, but there's no real value being created." Harold Peterson nodded grimly. "That explains why they were so eager to recruit me to bring in more investors. They promised me a finder's fee of 5% for anyone I brought into the opportunity. That's called multi-level marketing when it's legitimate," Daphne said. "But in a Ponzi scheme, it's just another way to expand the fraud. The more people at the bottom, the longer the scheme can continue before collapsing." Fred studied the manor through binoculars. "I can see about 15 people inside the main hall. That must be where they're holding the investment presentation. We need to get inside and gather evidence, but we also need to make sure no one else gives them money tonight. Like, that's where Scooby and I come in, right?" Shaggy guessed. "We're the distraction?" "Actually," Fred said with a smile, "this time you two have the most important job. You're going to be undercover investors." "What?" Shaggy and Scooby yelped in unison. Velma pulled out 2 business cards she designed on her laptop and printed at the library. "Meet Montgomery Pennisworth, 3, and his financial advisor, Dr. Scuba Dew. You're a wealthy heir interested in diversifying your portfolio with alternative investments. Like, Velma, I can barely say portfolio without getting tongue-tied. How am I supposed to pretend to be rich?" "You don't have to pretend very hard," Daphne assured him, pulling out a suit jacket she'd borrowed from her father. "Rich people ask simple questions. Just act interested, let them do most of the talking, and record everything with this." She handed him a pen that was actually a hidden camera. "While Shaggy and Scooby are inside gathering evidence," Fred continued, "Velma and I will be accessing their office computers. According to the floor plans Mr. Peterson provided, there is a business office on the 2nd floor where they keep the real financial records, the ones they do on show investors. And I'll be outside with Mr. Peterson," Daphne added, "coordinating with the authorities. Once we have solid evidence of fraud, we'll need law enforcement ready to move in immediately before anyone can destroy documents or transfer money." Harold looked emotional. "Thank you all for doing this. Not just for me, but for everyone else who might lose their savings." Velma placed a hand on his shoulder. "Mr. Peterson, one of the most important principles in economics is that information creates fair markets. When people lie and hide information, they can exploit others. By exposing the truth, we're not just solving a mystery, we're protecting the entire community." "That's really deep." "Velma," Shaggy said, struggling into the oversized suit jacket. "Like, can we also protect my dignity? Because I look ridiculous." "Ridiculous is good," Fred assured him. "Eccentric rich people are expected to look a little ridiculous." Just remember, you're confident, you have money to invest, and you're not afraid to ask questions. The more questions you ask, the more they'll reveal about their operation. Scooby, wearing a tiny pair of glasses Velma had procured, practiced looking distinguished. "Row do I rook?" "Like a very handsome financial advisor," Daphne said with a laugh. "Okay, gang, let's go over the signals one more time, ... 20 minutes later, Shaggy and Scooby approached the manor's front door, their hearts pounding. Inside, they could hear music, laughter, and the clink of champagne glasses, all designed to create an atmosphere of success and celebration. A woman in an expensive dress opened the door, her smile professionally warm. "Welcome. You must be Mr. Pennisworth and Dr. Dew? We've been expecting you. I'm Madison Clark, Senior Investment Coordinator for Goldridge Entertainment Ventures." Yeah, that's us," Shaggy said, then remembered he was supposed to be sophisticated. "I mean, yes, indeed. My associate Dr. Dew and I are most interested in your investment opportunity thing." Madison's smile never wavered, though her eyes assessed them shrewdly. "Wonderful. Come in, come in. We're just about to begin tonight's presentation. Can I offer you champagne? Or perhaps some canapes?" "Ranapes?" Scooby's ears perked up. "Food," Shaggy translated. And yes, definitely yes to food. They entered a lavish hall decorated with posters showing an imaginary theme park. Goldridge Ghost Train Adventure, coming 2026. The images were impressive. Families laughing on train rides, children meeting costumed characters, restaurants and gift shops bustling with activity. "Wow," Shaggy whispered to Scooby. "If this was real, it would actually be pretty cool." Around them, 15 investors mingled, most middle-aged or older, all dressed well, all wearing the hopeful expressions of people who believed they'd found something special. Shaggy recognized the look. It was the same expression he had when he thought he'd found an all-you-can-eat buffet for $5. It turned out to be just a really big salad. A man in an expensive three-piece suit clinked his glass, calling everyone to attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll please take your seats, we're ready to begin tonight's exclusive presentation. I'm Cornelius Goldridge III, great-grandson of the railway's founder, and I'm here to offer you the opportunity of a lifetime." Shaggy and Scooby exchanged glances. Through his hidden camera pen, Shaggy was recording everything. The presentation began with slick graphics and emotional music. Cornelius spoke with the confidence of a practiced salesman, his voice rich and persuasive. "Imagine," he began, "a theme park that combines history, thrills, and family entertainment. The Goldridge Ghost Train Adventure will welcome over 1 million visitors in its first year alone. Our conservative projections show profits of $15 million annually within 3 years." A woman in the audience raised her hand. "Those numbers sound wonderful, but what about the competition? There are other theme parks in the region." "Excellent question." Cornelius beamed. "But we have something they don't: authenticity. Our ghost train is based on real local legends. We already have the infrastructure, the original train, the tracks, the station. We're not building from scratch. We're restoring history. That's why our startup costs are a fraction of traditional theme parks." Shaggy raised his hand nervously. "Excuse me, Mr. Goldridge? How much has been invested so far? And can we see where the money went?" There was a brief flicker in Cornelius's smile, so quick that most people missed it. But Shaggy caught it. "We've raised approximately $8 million from visionary investors like yourselves," Cornelius said smoothly. "Those funds have been invested in land acquisition, equipment purchases, permits, and initial construction. We have comprehensive documentation available for serious investors to review with our financial team." "Rut ran, we re-writ row?" Scooby asked, and several investors chuckled at his accent. "Dr. Dew asks an excellent question," Madison interjected. "Transparency is our priority. However, For competitive reasons and to protect our intellectual property, detailed financial records are only available to investors who commit to our Platinum tier. That has a minimum investment of $100,000. Velma's voice crackled quietly in Shaggy's hidden earpiece. That's a red flag. Legitimate investments provide financial disclosure before you invest, not after. Keep pushing. Shaggy swallowed hard. Like, that seems a bit backward, doesn't it? I mean, my uncle always says, measure twice, cut once. Shouldn't we see the numbers before we, give you our money? A few other investors murmured agreement, and Cornelius's smile tightened slightly. Mr. Pennisworth, I understand your caution. It's admirable. But let me share something with you. He clicked to a new slide showing testimonials. These are just a few of our existing investors. They've already seen returns of 30 to 50% on their initial investments. The question isn't whether this opportunity is legitimate. It is whether you're ready to seize it before it's too late. He clicked to another slide. Limited spots remaining. Only 5 Platinum tier positions available tonight. That's a pressure tactic, Velma's voice whispered in Shaggy's ear. Creating artificial scarcity to rush decision-making. Classic fraud technique. An elderly man in the back stood up excitedly. I'd like to invest. I'll take a Platinum position right now. Where do I sign? Wonderful. Madison appeared with a tablet and stylus. Mr. Chun, if you'll just authorize the electronic transfer. WAIT. Shaggy jumped to his feet, his heart pounding. Everyone turned to look at him. Like, before anyone gives money, shouldn't we ... I don't know ... see the actual theme park? The construction site? Something real? Cornelius's expression darkened. Mr. Pennisworth, are you questioning our integrity? Like, no offense, but I'm questioning everything? That's what my financial advisor told me to do. Shaggy gestured to Scooby, who nodded vigorously, his fake glasses sliding down his nose. Very well, Cornelius said coldly. The construction site is at the old railway station and warehouse district. However, it's not safe for tours at night. Perhaps you're not the right fit for this investment opportunity. We're looking for decisive partners who trust. Trust but verify, a woman's voice called out. It was one of the other investors, a woman in her 60s. My financial advisor told me the same thing. I'd like to see the site too before I invest anything more. Other voices joined in. Yes, a tour would be appropriate. I agree. Let's see what we're investing in. I want documentation first. The mood in the room was shifting. Cornelius and Madison exchanged worried glances. Ladies and gentlemen, Madison tried to regain control. We understand your concerns, but the special pricing available tonight is truly time-sensitive. The permits alone will increase our costs by crash. A window shattered, and a familiar glowing green light flooded the hall. The phantom train whistle screamed outside, and through the broken window, they could see the ghost train circling the manor, its spectral glow painting everything in eerie light. The gold is cursed, the phantom conductor's voice boomed. Flee while you still can. The investors screamed and scrambled for the exits. In the chaos, Shaggy saw Cornelius and Madison rushing toward a back office, carrying laptops and file boxes. Scoob! Shaggy grabbed his friend. Follow them. Meanwhile, on the second floor, Fred and Velma had accessed the office computers and were downloading files frantically. Fred, look at this, Velma said, her face pale in the monitor's glow. There's almost nothing left. Out of $8 million invested, there's only about $200,000 in the accounts. The rest has been withdrawn and transferred to offshore accounts. They're getting ready to run, Fred realized. Velma, grab everything you can. We need to. The door burst open. Cornelius and Madison stood there, no longer smiling, with 2 large security guards behind them. Well, Cornelius said coldly. It seems we have more than just curious investors. We have spies. That's very unfortunate for you. Outside, Daphne saw the chaos and immediately called the authorities. "We need police at Goldridge Manor immediately. The suspects are attempting to flee." The phantom train circled the manor once more and then suddenly stopped. The driver's cabin door opened, and instead of a ghost, Harold Peterson stepped out, pulling off the skull mask. "That's right, Cornelius," Harold shouted through a megaphone. "I know this train is just paint and lights. And I know you stole my retirement fund. The police are on their way." Inside, Cornelius and Madison realized the trap had been sprung. They bolted for the back door, but found Shaggy and Scooby blocking their path. "Like, going somewhere?" Shaggy asked, and for once, he wasn't scared. He was angry on behalf of all the people who'd been cheated. "Get out of our way." Madison snarled, but Scooby stood his ground. "Row!" Scooby barked firmly. The sound of police sirens filled the air. The criminals were surrounded. The jig was up. Fred and Velma appeared from upstairs, carrying evidence. "We have all the financial records," Velma announced. "Every fraudulent transaction, every false promise, every penny you stole." Cornelius slumped in defeat as the police entered. "It would have worked," he muttered. "Another month and we'd have been gone with the money ... But you got greedy," Fred said. "You kept recruiting more investors when you should have run. And that greed is what caught you." As the police led the criminals away, the investors gathered outside, processing what had happened. Some were crying, realizing their money was mostly gone. Others were simply in shock. Harold Peterson approached the gang, tears in his eyes. "Thank you. You didn't save my savings, but you saved these people from losing even more. And you gave us evidence for the authorities to try to recover what they can." Velma addressed the gathered investors. "I know tonight has been difficult, but please understand, this wasn't your fault. These criminals were professionals who exploited your trust. The best thing you can do now is report everything to the authorities, work with the victim support services, and learn from this experience." "What should we have looked for?" the elderly Mr. Chun asked, his voice shaking. "How do we know what's real and what's a scam?" And that's when Velma delivered the most important economics lesson of the night. The police had taken Cornelius Goldridge III, whose real name was actually Carl Griggs, with no connection to the original Goldridge family. Madison Clark, real name Melissa Chun, and their accomplices into custody. The shaken investors gathered in the manor's parlor while Velma, with the gang's support, conducted an impromptu financial literacy workshop. "Mr. Chun, you asked how to spot a scam," Velma said gently. "The truth is, sophisticated fraudsters are very convincing. But there are warning signs. Let me show you what we found." She pulled up the evidence on her laptop, projecting it onto the wall. First, guaranteed high returns. Look at this brochure. It promises 30 to 50% returns in 6 months. But the stock market averages about 10% per year over long periods. When someone promises returns that are way above market average with guaranteed safety, that's a major red flag. A woman in her 40s raised her hand. But they said it was guaranteed because they already had the infrastructure, the train, the land, everything. That's called the credibility anchor, Fred explained. They show you something real like the train we've all seen and use it to make everything else seem legitimate. But the train was just theatrical props worth maybe $20,000, not the multi-million-dollar asset they claimed. Daphne pulled out a folder. "We also found this. Testimonials from satisfied investors. But when we checked, these people don't actually exist. The photos are stock images and the names are fake. Always verify testimonials independently before trusting them." "What about the pressure to invest quickly?" another investor asked. "They kept saying there were only limited spots available." "Exactly." Velma's eyes lit up with her teaching passion. "Legitimate investments don't rush you. If someone pressures you to invest immediately without time to research, consult advisors, or even sleep on the decision, That's a tactic designed to prevent critical thinking. Good opportunities will still be there tomorrow. Harold Peterson spoke up, his voice heavy with hard-earned wisdom. They also made it difficult to ask questions. Every time someone asked for specific financial details, they deflected or said that information was only available after investing. That should have been my biggest warning sign. Absolutely, Velma agreed. Due diligence means investigating before investing. That includes checking if the company is registered with financial regulatory agencies, verifying business licenses and permits, requesting audited financial statements, consulting with independent financial advisors, researching the people running the operation, taking time to think, no matter how limited the opportunity seems. Shaggy raised his hand. Like Velma, what about us regular people who don't have retirement funds or big investments? How does this apply to us? Great question, Shaggy. These principles apply to any financial decision. When you're offered a deal that seems too good to be true, whether it's an investment, a credit card, a loan, or even a sale at a store, pause and ask, what's the real cost? What am I giving up? Why is this such a good deal? What happens if things go wrong? Can I afford to lose this money? That makes sense. Shaggy nodded. It's basically, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Exactly. Scooby agreed. The sound of a vehicle approaching made everyone turn. A black SUV pulled up, and a woman in a sharp business suit emerged, carrying a briefcase. Good evening, she announced. I'm Agent Patricia Morrison with the Financial Fraud Division. I understand you've all had quite an evening. I'm here to help you begin the recovery process. Over the next hour, Agent Morrison explained what would happen next. We'll all be working to freeze the perpetrators' accounts and recover whatever funds remain. Unfortunately, in cases like this, victims typically recover only a fraction of their investment, usually 10 to 30%. The criminals already moved most of the money offshore, which makes recovery difficult and time-consuming. Mr. Chun looked devastated. So my $50,000, I might only get back $5,000 or $10,000. I'm sorry, but yes, that's likely, Agent Morrison said sympathetically. This is why prevention is so crucial. The financial damage from fraud is often permanent, but there is something positive, she continued. Because of this group's quick action in gathering evidence, we've been able to arrest the perpetrators before they disappeared completely. That's rare. Usually, by the time victims realize they've been scammed, the criminals are long gone. You also stopped them from recruiting more victims tonight, which means you've prevented others from experiencing what you're going through. Harold Peterson stood up, addressing the group. I know we're all hurting financially. I know I am. But I want to share something. This experience has taught me an expensive but important lesson about due diligence, about greed, and about making careful decisions. I'm not grateful for losing my money, but I am grateful I learned this now rather than falling for another scam in the future. The other investors nodded, some wiping away tears. There's one more thing I want to say, Harold continued. These young people, Scooby, Shaggy, Velma, Fred, and Daphne, they didn't have to help us. They could have walked away from this mystery. But they chose to investigate, to take risks, and to protect people they didn't even know. That's the kind of investment that really matters, investing time and energy in helping others. The investors broke into applause, and Shaggy blushed. Like, we were just trying to solve a mystery about a ghost train, he said modestly. But you did more than that, Agent Morrison said. You exposed a criminal operation that had already victimized dozens of people and would have victimized hundreds more. The financial literacy lesson you've provided tonight is worth more than any investment return. As the investors began filing out to give statements to police and meet with victim services, Fred gathered the gang together. Well, team, we still haven't explained one thing. Who was driving the ghost train when it circled the manor tonight? They walked outside to where the train sat, still faintly glowing with its phosphorescent paint. The phantom conductor costume was draped over the driver's seat, but no one was inside. "Like, that's weird," Shaggy said. Mr. Peterson was wearing the costume, but the train was moving ... Velma examined the train carefully, then laughed. "Look, it's on a track loop with an automated system. They programmed it to run on a timer as part of their theatrical presentation." Mr. Peterson just put on the costume and used the megaphone while the train did its scheduled run. It was all mechanical. So the ghost train was never really a ghost, just a business scheme, Daphne summarized. "Not just any business scheme," Fred corrected. "A criminal enterprise designed to exploit people's dreams of financial security. But we stopped it. Ran we whelped Riopo," Scooby added proudly. "Yeah, buddy, we did," Shaggy agreed. "Like, even though we didn't find any actual treasure or gold, we found something better. We protected people from losing even more money. Actually," Velma said thoughtfully, "there's a famous saying in economics. A penny saved is a penny earned. By stopping this fraud, we essentially saved these people from losing additional millions. In a way, we did find treasure. We just prevented it from being stolen." The gang stood together in the cool night air, watching as police finished processing the scene and investors headed home to begin the long process of recovery. "You know what's funny?" Shaggy mused. "Like, at the beginning of this mystery, I was worried about spending $3 on snacks. Now I realize that that's not the problem. The problem is people trying to take shortcuts to wealth instead of building it slowly and carefully." "That's remarkably insightful, Shaggy," Velma said with surprise. "Don't get too excited," Shaggy grinned. "I'm still going to spend money on snacks. But like, maybe I'll save some first? And definitely won't invest it in any ghost trains?" "Rude, Roanne," Scooby laughed. Fred put his arms around his friend's shoulders. "Come on, gang. Let's head back to the Mystery Machine. We've got one more chapter to wrap up unmasking the criminals officially and making sure everyone learns the final lessons from this mystery." As they walked back to the van, the ghost train sat silent on its tracks, its fake glow fading in the dawn light. The mystery of the millionaire ghost train was nearly solved. But the most important lesson, that true wealth comes from wisdom, not wishful thinking, was one that would echo far beyond this single night. Outside the police station, the gang met with Harold Peterson and several other investors who gathered for a press conference about the fraud case. Agent Morrison addressed the media. "This case represents one of the most sophisticated investment fraud schemes we've encountered in recent years. The perpetrators use psychological manipulation, fake credentials, theatrical props, and high-pressure tactics to convince victims to invest in a non-existent theme park. Thanks to the quick thinking and investigation by these young people, we were able to apprehend the criminals and prevent additional losses." A reporter called out, "What advice would you give to people to avoid similar scams?" Velma stepped forward, encouraged by Agent Morrison. "First, remember that if an investment promises returns that seem too good to be true, they probably are. Second, always verify credentials and check with financial regulatory agencies. Third, never invest money you can't afford to lose. Fourth, don't let anyone pressure you into immediate decisions. And finally, talk to trusted advisors before making major financial commitments. Also," Fred added, "understand that wealth building is usually slow and boring. Legitimate investments grow steadily over time through compound interest and market returns, not through quick schemes promising 30% returns in 6 months." Daphne held up a pamphlet. "We've worked with Agent Morrison to create a simple guide for recognizing investment fraud. It's available for free at the police station and online. Education is the best defense against financial crime." Harold Peterson approached the microphone, his voice emotional but determined. "I lost almost everything to this scheme. But I want other potential victims to know. It's not about intelligence or education. These criminals are professionals who study human psychology. They know exactly how to exploit our hopes and fears. The best thing you can do is slow down, ask questions, and verify everything before parting with your money. After the press conference, the gang gathered back at the mystery machine for their traditional post-mystery wrap-up over sandwiches, which Shaggy and Scooby had purchased with money. Shaggy had actually budgeted for food this time. "So," Fred said, taking a bite of his sandwich, "let's recap what we learned about economics from this mystery." Velma pulled out her tablet. "Okay, Lesson 1. Compound interest can work for you in legitimate investments, but it can also work against you in scams. The compound part of compound interest means your returns generate additional returns over time, but only if the returns are real, not fabricated." Lesson 2, Daphne continued, was about due diligence researching before investing. That applies to any major financial decision, not just investments. Credit cards, loans, major purchases all require careful investigation. Lesson 3, Fred said, was about recognizing pressure tactics. Legitimate businesses give you time to make decisions. Scammers try to force immediate action to prevent critical thinking. Lesson 4, Shaggy added, surprising everyone, is about budgeting and saving. If Mr. Peterson had followed the rule about not investing money you can't afford to lose, he wouldn't have lost his entire retirement fund. Diversification, I think Velma called it? Exactly, Velma beamed proudly. Diversification means spreading your investments across different assets so that if one fails, you don't lose everything. It's the financial equivalent of don't put all your eggs in one basket. Rand Reinl Resson? Scooby asked, his mouth full of sandwich. The final lesson, Velma said thoughtfully, is that real wealth isn't just about money. It's about knowledge, relationships, integrity, and the ability to sleep at night, knowing you haven't hurt anyone. Carl Griggs might have had millions temporarily, but he lost everything that actually matters. The gang sat in companionable silence for a moment, watching Coolsville's afternoon traffic pass by the mystery machine's windows. "You know," Daphne said, "this was a different kind of mystery. We didn't unmask a ghost to find someone trying to scare people away from treasure. We unmasked criminals who were using the illusion of treasure to steal from real people. And even though we caught the bad guys," Shaggy added quietly, "most of those people still lost their money. It's not as happy an ending as usual." "No," Fred agreed, "but we prevented it from being worse. And we helped educate people, so maybe they'll recognize fraud in the future. Sometimes that's the best we can do." "Rue," Scooby nodded wisely. A knock on the mystery machine's door interrupted their reflection. It was Harold Peterson holding an envelope. "I wanted to give you this," he said, handing it to Fred. "It is not much, just a $500 reward that Agent Morrison arranged from the law enforcement fund for cases like this. I know it's not a lot, but I wanted you to have it." "Mr. Peterson," Fred protested, "we didn't solve this mystery for money. We did it because it was the right thing to do." "I know," Harold smiled, "but that's exactly why you deserve it. You risked yourselves to help strangers. Please take it. And maybe ... bubble quotes," he glanced at Velma. "Maybe you could use some of it to print more of those financial literacy pamphlets. To help other people avoid what happened to me." Velma's eyes welled with tears. "That's a wonderful idea, Mr. Peterson. We'd be honored." After Harold left, the gang looked at the money. "So," Daphne said with a smile, "what do we do with it? How do we budget $500? "Well," Velma calculated, "printing pamphlets will cost about $200 for 1,000 copies. That leaves $300. We can invest it," Fred suggested. "Or save it for van repairs," Daphne added practically. "Or," Shaggy said hopefully, "we could spend $50 on a celebration dinner for solving the mystery, save $200 in a savings account for emergencies, and use the remaining $50 for gas and supplies for our next mystery." Everyone stared at Shaggy. "What?" he said defensively. "I've been paying attention to Velma's economics lessons." "Rag is right," Scooby agreed. Relibrate, rave, and repair. Velma laughed, wiping her eyes. That's actually perfect financial planning, Shaggy. You've balanced immediate enjoyment, long-term security, and practical needs. I'm genuinely impressed. Don't be too impressed. Shaggy grinned. I'm still planning to spend most of my share of the dinner budget on extra-large sandwiches. Some things never change, Fred laughed. As the sun set over Coolsville, the Mystery Machine pulled away from the police station, heading toward their favorite diner. The ghost train sat abandoned in a police impound lot, its fake glow permanently extinguished, its theatrical magic revealed as nothing more than painted lights and criminal intent. But somewhere in the city, Harold Peterson was carefully reading the financial literacy pamphlet Velma had given him, taking notes and starting the long process of rebuilding his financial knowledge and security. And across 3 states, 200 victims were beginning their recovery, armed with new awareness and determination not to be fooled again. The mystery was solved. The criminals were caught. The ghost was revealed. And most importantly, a community had learned an expensive but vital lesson about the difference between real wealth and fool's gold, between legitimate opportunity and criminal exploitation, between quick schemes and patient wisdom. In the end, the real treasure wasn't gold bars on a phantom train. It was the knowledge to recognize the difference between what glitters and what is genuinely valuable. And that treasure, unlike the money Carl Griggs stole, could never be taken away. Scooby-Dooby-Doo! Scooby howled happily as the Mystery Machine disappeared into the evening, ready for whatever mystery and economics lesson came next.